Good day. My name is Francois Kleefers and I'm from Stellenbosch University, South Africa. And I would want to talk about Olympic values of inspiration, what alternatives in this series of alternative 5 rings. Before I proceed, I just want to make an introductory statement that the Olympic Games is an important international phenomenon. It is a platform where values in different forms are promoted, but it also provides spaces for voices of resistance. And in the South African case, the anti-apartheid movement found a very useful platform to voice their concerns. It also helps to expose spaces where there are continuous and past exclusions. So a fundamental question that one can ask is, are there any alternatives to the notion of inspiration, which is part of the Olympic Values Charter? So the Olympic Values Charter is based on utilitarian values: friendship, excellence, respect, courage, determination, inspiration, and equality. I ever want to argue that these values should be taught as pedagogy. In order to justify the notion of inspiration, a pedagogical approach is a much more suited approach to teach values of inspiration. Pedagogy, of course, sees education beyond didactics and mere methods. Pedagogy sees education as being shaped and shaping society in different forms, in its social, cultural, scientific, political, and historical context. So a question one wants to ask is this notion of inspiration. Does it have any kind of value in cultural context other than ones based on Euro-American traditions? Are these notions of inspiration, as the Olympic movement professes, are they universal? Are the cultural methodologies which are used to teach these values in European American context appropriate in other cultural contexts? And the final question I want to ask is, how can international Olympic education and fair play initiatives represent global cultural perspectives? In the South African context, the history of the South African Olympic experience is one of participation, exclusion, and also imitation. And therefore, this notion that the value of inspiration is universal must be questioned. So, if we just look at a brief alternative history of South Africa's Olympic history, one can see that there are alternative notions for inspiration, which will also lead to alternative actions with regard to Olympism. So, as early as 1919, there were reports of a certain Pat Davids who defeated William Applegarth while in World War I duty in Palestine. Pat Davids was a member of the Cape Corps, which was a colored military unit, and the report in the media says that Pat Davids, who was a athlete of some note in South Africa prior to the First World War, competed against William Applegarth, who was a bronze medalist in the 100 yards in the in the 1912 Olympic Games. Between 1934 and 1936, Cape Town staged what was known as the Olympics of the Slaves, which were a group of conservative colored people organizing an alternative Olympic Games in commemoration of the emancipation of the slaves 100 years ago in 1834. In 1936, the Sun newspaper carried large columns on Jesse Owens' victory in the Nazi Olympics. It was also the first time that they suggested possibilities of South African black representativity for the Olympic Games. Between 1960s and 1970s, when South Africa was first suspended and then expelled from the Olympic movement, the apartheid regime staged the Apartheid Olympic Games, also known as the multinational games, in which a significant number of black people participated. History will judge them, and some activists today still refers to these black participants as collaborators. In 1984 and 1988, the internal South African anti-apartheid movement under the aegis of the South African Council on Sports, SACOS, staged the Olympics of the oppressed. In the 1990s, we had the Stop Olympic Bid, which was a social movement to largely directed by the SACOS, by former SACOS members. And then we also had the South Africa's participation in the military Olympics in the 1990s. These alternative Olympic Games and Olympic activities shows that there's inspiration beyond the formal Olympic history. There's inspiration not only for an official Olympic history based on medals and victories, but also an inspiration for progressive community social movements. In conclusion, I would like to state that South Africa, or the anti-apartheid movement, always wanted to be part of the Olympic movement. The non-establishment sport federation believed in inspiration, but they drew the inspiration from alternative sources. They always wanted to be part of the Olympic movement. So, for example, Sanrock refused to be part of the Genefo Games. So, in the South African context, inspirational values should be based on an alternative landscape rather than the current one that is based on the inspiration of medals and victories. Thank you.